Joining me now is NewsNation political contributor Denise Gitsham, who's also a former aide to President George W. Bush. Denise, good morning to you. Thanks for being here. As Jackie was mentioning, as of right now, we still, at least there are no reports that Iran has reached out to the White House or to President Trump regarding this peace proposal. How do you interpret the silence?
Well, it's not surprising at all. Iran has always been the master of delay, and each week that passes seemed to give them more time to reset and strengthen their diplomatic ties, with China and other people who would like to see us fail. The president is really trying to play a difficult role that nobody has ever succeeded in doing, which is trying to balance ending a costly and risky war politically with preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon that could harm us in the near term and in the future. And that's a tough balance to strike. And listen, no one's ever done it before. And I think that he's trying to do the best that he can, given all the political pressure around him. Personally, I happen to think that, Iran's not a good actor. We already know that. That's not like breaking news. But what is it that they respond to every single time? It's economic sanctions and military might. And I think the longer we give them to sit at a diplomatic table that they really don't belong in as the world's leading state sponsor of terror, the more legitimacy we give them. And I think the longer this war is going to drag on.
The White House and the president have continued to say that they hold all of the cards here in these negotiations, in these talks. Do you still think that's the case?
I think if that were the case, then this war would already be over. The president would have what he wanted, right? So I think obviously no, but I understand the PR war here and the need to show strength. That's a huge part of any sort of warfare. Again, the only question that matters at the end is that whatever path we move forward on, we have to make sure, we have to ask ourselves, is this something that makes Americans safer and more protected from the potential for nuclearized Iran, both now and in the future, right? We saw some language that said maybe we can push off enrichment for 10 to 15 years. That's simply not acceptable as a starting point for those of us who care about the security of our nation, which I presume is all Americans.
In the meantime, too, of course, we've felt the impacts here at home. We've had rising gas prices. Americans are feeling these impacts, and we're continuing to see these talks kind of drag out. How much pressure is that really putting on the White House? What kind of timetable do they have here?
Yeah, a lot, especially with midterms on the horizon. I say they have about 30 days left, right? Beginning of June is really when people start to make hard decisions about the midterms, and things can change. Look, never count President Trump out. That's one thing I've learned. For some reason, he's able to do something that no other politicians do. When everyone else seems doomed, he's able to pull a rabbit out of a hat, and it works almost every single time. And so I think that he probably has some real plans in how to bring costs down before the midterms actually come around. The question is, are Americans going to be so traumatized by the prices they're paying now? And will they have forgotten that under Biden, inflation was actually at 9%, far worse than it is now? And so there's a lot of questions to be asked about how Americans are going to feel when they go to cast those ballots. But fortunately for me as a Republican, we have some time to make things right and bring costs down so Americans can say, look, I understand what your denuclearization of Iran goals are, and I feel like I can live and I can support both, right? That's really the key, is we can't have one as a trade-off of the other and not expect to have ramifications in November.
Looking ahead, we mentioned that President Trump is going to Beijing. He's going to meet with Xi Jinping. Of course, China remains Iran's largest trading partner. No doubt Iran is going to be part of that conversation. How do you see that playing out?
Now that we're in this war, it's going to be a situation where we're not only talking about what happens in Iran, but it's going to be tied to what happens in Taiwan, right? Nobody wants China. There's nothing China wants more than to take over Taiwan. And any concessions, I'm concerned, as somebody whose family grew up in Taiwan, and I'm concerned that anything that we do to try to negotiate with Beijing to get what we want in Iran is going to affect our ability to protect and defend Taiwan in the future. And, it's interesting. I actually didn't know this until I was prepping for this segment, that China is, in fact, Iran's largest trading partner and buys 90% of iranium oil experts. I had no idea that that was how closely they were tied behind the scenes, just economically. And so that gives Beijing real economic leverage over Tehran's war-making ability. If this summit goes well on Tuesday between Xi and Trump, then there's a possibility, and I don't even know how you define well anymore, but if each side is able to kind of get what it wants, China could play a huge role because of how much of Iran's economy it supports in bringing this war to an end. The question is, what is it going to cost? And one thing we know for sure is how we've seen sort of the relationship between Trump and Xi devolve. Really, it used to be somewhat friendly in his first term. This is no longer sort of a bromance, right? This is clearly a transactional sort of relationship that really is rooted in cold rivalry. There's no lost love between the two of them, no matter what they say publicly. So it's going to be I think this is probably the most consequential summit that they could ever have because of what's happening with the war in Iran right now, and because China's rhetoric on Taiwan has increased so much.
Yeah, well said. Lastly, I do want to ask you as well, Virginia's Attorney General, Jay Jones, he's vowing to take action after Virginia's Supreme Court struck down a redistricting plan that favored Democrats 10-1. Of course, we have seen these redistricting battles happening in several states across the country as we approach the midterms. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, it's hard to listen to anything that Attorney General says when he's a guy who's clearly, if you just Google it, he clearly thinks that he himself is above the law. And so does his party. Look, I'd love to see the Democrats blow another $64 million trying to skirt the constitutional requirements for bringing this issue before the voters in the first place. The reason the court struck this down is because it didn't follow the proper constitutionally mandated procedure for bringing this issue before the voters. That's it. And the courts did the right thing to just make sure that they did the one job that they had to do, which was to enforce the state of Virginia's constitution. It's clear what the procedure is for doing that, and the Democrats did not follow it. They tried to do a naked power grab, and the court said no, and that's all that matters. We should be celebrating this as a win for democracy.
NewsNation political contributor Denise Gitsham, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, still to come, the U.S.-Mexico relationship.